So, you know, this month, in the month of November, we have a new kind of talk theme, and it's compassionate conduits, living as compassionate conduits. You know, it reminds me of Centers for Spiritual Living. You know, it's not spiritual acting. It's not any of that. It is spiritual living. And this month, our theme of living as compassionate conduits really brings to mind that this is about being, about who we be, how we live, and what it is that we bring forth. So as we dive deeper today, our talk title today is, what is God giving you? I have some comments about that in just a minute. You know, it's kind of one of those things you kind of like toss out there. What is God giving you? And then breaking it down, it says God has already given you everything. It is your job to awaken to it. Life is fully supporting you at all times. And if we leave that up for just one more moment, let me read that again. God has already given you everything. It is your job to awaken to it. Life is fully supporting you at all times. So the question is, what is God giving you? And what I want to say, you know, just from that question is I want to say everything, and I want to say nothing. That's how I want to answer that question. And it stay with me for a minute, because that question is like, what is God giving you? Just the question alone poses separation, poses this idea that life is separate than who we are. And yet it is the question around, what is God giving you? Because our mindset is always focused on, you know, on what it is that we have. And yet the answer is everything and nothing. It is going to depend on which position you are looking from. Which position you are looking from. This idea that God has given us everything is the default of our language. And that's how I want to pose this, is that it is a default of our language, that because our language, as soon as we speak, we start limiting and putting in a box or in a picture frame that which we're considering or talking about or thinking about. And in that opportunity of speaking in an effort to connect, because truly communication is about connecting. But the moment that we begin to use language, we begin to really limit the thing itself and what we're talking about. And when we're talking about an infinite intelligence that has created everything out of itself, therefore our life, my life, is the life of God, the life of life. My life is life itself. So therefore, it hasn't necessarily given me anything like, oh, you didn't have it, and so now it's given. It is who and what I am. It is who and what God is. And yet, when we use language, it, you know, everything still means a lot. And so even if we begin to see it as God has given us everything, it's just ours to awaken to it. In the awakening is when I awaken to recognize that I haven't been given anything at all, that I am it. That it is already here. And that is why I love the question, because it's a play on our consciousness, and it also allows space and room in which to grow into our expanded awareness. I love it when it said it's our job to awaken to it. Life is fully supporting us at all times. It is only our belief that we are separate from this power and this presence that has us thinking that we're divided. It's just that some of us have not awakened to this recognition and to this knowing that right where we are, the power and the presence and the magnificence and the fullness and the abundance and the peace and the joy and the power of life lies. And so my word for today is clarity. Clarity. And by clarity, what I mean is we must become clear, crystal clear. Now, when I say clarity, what I'm really meaning is we must actually see the truth. When we have blurred vision, or when we cannot have clarity, when the waters are muddied with doubt, with fear, when the waters are muddied with regret and shame, when the waters are muddied with despair and depression, we do not see clearly. And just like a jar that is filled with water and has some dirt on the bottom or some soil on the bottom, the minute we begin to pour clear water into it, it gets stirred up and it looks like we are going to hell in a handbasket. But beloveds, it is incumbent upon us. It is urgent that we, as spiritual people, as spiritual beings, that we are not swayed by the rumors of wars and reports of wars, by the rumors of violence and the appearance of violence, by the acts that are muddying the water. It is our job to stay in the faith and to recognize our divinity, our truth, even in the face of no agreement, even in the face of the news and the media, even in the face of sometimes what society would call hopelessness. We're living in a time today where people of faith are now beginning to be the majority, and that we have been for quite a long time, and that we are together steadfast in a vision of a world that works for everyone. But the only way that it happens is that each of us awakens to our spiritual magnificence. And if we're not awakening to our spiritual magnificence, then the process is just slowed down quite a bit. So on a daily basis, we must engage in practices, just like you learn how to brush your teeth, and it became such a practice that you do it 2 and 3 times a day, or at least once a day. But it is now a practice of brushing your teeth, and now you've been doing it for as long as you've been alive almost. Well, it is the same with our spiritual practice. It is the same that in order for us to stay healthy, spiritually fit, that we must exercise our spiritual muscle and recognize who you are. You must recognize who you are so that you can recognize who I am, so that we can recognize who each of us are. You know, in the acorn, people usually say, in the acorn is the potential of an oak tree. Yay, an oak tree, a huge, huge oak tree. That's pretty daggone big. But what I say is that in that acorn, in that little acorn, is the potential of a forest. Because that oak tree is going to litter and let go of more acorns, and those acorns have the potential of a forest. And so do not underestimate your power, your acorn, ACORN, a cool opportunity right now. Think of the acorn a cool opportunity right now to engage in your spiritual practice. That because of your spiritual practice, because of this little acorn, because of nurturing it, because of watering it, because of having the sunshine on it, because of its correct environment, that this acorn has the potential of a forest. Look at our forest. Our forest here at Downey CSL is growing. But now we must actually not just have more and more folks. What we as a community get to do is deepen our own spiritual practice so that we are strong and long-lasting oak trees. This is what is being called for now. That even in the face of whatever's happening in our society, in our world, that we hold to a higher truth. That is what I'm here to speak about today, is that today, as compassionate conduits, I have to be clear. If I am a conduit, a channel, I must be clear. If I'm clogged up, if I'm clogged up, what do you think's gonna happen? It's gonna be less of a flow. That flow is gonna kind of be a little bit yucky and mucky, and it's gonna be all mucked up, right? I said it with an M. There you go, right? But we must be clear channels, clear conduits. And the only way to be a clear conduit is to know and to have a spiritual practice on a daily basis. I was talking with someone who I care about so much, and it's about just kind of sharing these spiritual principles, sharing these practices so that people awaken. And I'm like, when life gives you a challenge, no, you don't call up your turn up good girlfriend or your turn up good boyfriend and be like, guess what happened? And such and such and such and such. And it's gonna go down tonight. No. Our spiritual practice is when things are not going the way that we might think that they should be going. Our practice is there's one power, one presence, one life. It has created everything out of itself. Therefore, it is my life. It is living me. This power and presence is so awesome that the planets are rotating in a divine pattern in which they don't crash into each other unless they're supposed to form other galaxies. We live as this power so awesome that it is breathing us right now, that it is coursing our blood through our veins right now, and we don't have to think about it. It is digesting the food, this infinite intelligence that is a divine order. We're busy just kind of thinking like it's just a fluke, la, 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 la. And we think our good friend, our practitioner, our minister, our so-and-so is going to be the answer and the solution to our daily living problems. No. It is that power within. It is that life force, that prana, that Atman presence, that if in fact we practice on a daily basis, just sitting still and not thinking, because the tendency is to think, is to use our brain. This is not about thinking. This is about being and sensing and getting rid of all of our titles, getting rid of all of those labels, getting rid of all of that, and remembering the truth that at our very core, this power and presence is living and having its being as us. That my real name is not Sunshine Daye. My real name is living presence, is living spirit in human form. And that is who each of us are. We are that unique and unrepeatable way that this power and presence is living. And so the more you forget about it, the weaker you are. the more you forget about it, the more limitations you have. The more you forget about who you really are, oh yeah, doom and gloom is in our presence. But to the degree in which we practice and practice and practice and practice, especially when we don't need it, to that degree, when we need that calmness, that serenity, that peace, that tranquility, that know-how, it appears and it transcends all things. The only thing that limits us is our thought itself. We are unlimited. But we got to be clear. We got to be clear. And it's through our spiritual practice that we become clearer. That's why I love the Buddhist tradition of chanting. You know, in the Buddhist tradition of chanting, they sit before the Gahanzen. The Gahanzen is a metaphor for a mirror. And in chanting, it is almost like taking a rag and just wiping that mirror, wiping the reflection so that I might actually see my real self. That kind of clarity, that I might see my true self. And it is when we're in spiritual practice of prayer, of meditation, of being a contributor to life, whether it's our time, our talent, or our treasure. It is through visioning. It is through singing. It is through education. That is how we shine our mirror. And we have the clarity. We shine it up and buff it up, so much so that we try to get those smears out so that we can actually see who we really are. And that we might really know who we really are at all times. Beloved, if you're not experiencing life as you want to experience it, even within the parameters of C19, even within the parameters of our global climate change, even within the parameters of our political differences and our political unities and what's happening in our politics today, if you are not experiencing the love and the joy and the peace, even in the face of world affairs, it's because you're not bringing it. You got to bring it. You got to know it. You got to allow it to shine. You are it. Because you are the unique and unrepeatable way that God shows up in human form, it's already quote unquote given, meaning it's already there. It's just our job to now go within and to recognize it and allow it to shine. And we must express our truth and shine our truth. We have an inexhaustible light, even though it might be on a dimmer switch right now. We are an inexhaustible light. And it is incumbent upon us to do the work, to keep that light shining so that others may recognize their truth. There's a gentleman, a poet by the name of Shoemaker, and I don't have the book in front of me, but I wanted to just share just in about a minute a poem that he talks about. I stand near the door. And he says, in essence, what he's saying is, I stand near the door so that others who don't know where the door is and who are traveling in this hallway of darkness I can reach my hand out and I can show them where the door is. Now, when people go through the door, they experience their enlightenment and their truth and their knowing, and they're gone. But Shoemaker talks about his job, and what he knows is that he's been there and he's kind of come back to stand by the door so that many, and as many as possible are not forgotten, but that they too can come through that door of enlightenment, of the knowing that their life is the life of God itself. And so today, the only way that you can stand by that door is to have your own enlightenment experience first. And then to stand by the door, to let your light shine so brightly that others are drawn to the power, to the love, to the joy of recognizing and knowing this for themselves. This is the message for today. And so I just let it be that we, each of us, continue to be compassionate conduits, because we are clear in knowing that right where we are, God is. And that right where I am, the light of the world is. I am the light of the world. Each of us together is the light of the world. And we must let it shine, let it shine. So go ahead today and know your truth. Stand in that clarity and allow your love and your light to shine. It is so, and so it is.